All right, my fourth grade friends, we are going to review our homework. So find your packet page in here. There were 10 airs. We did one of them together. We realized little was spelled wrong. All right, so let's work through and figure out what our the next air should be. Little Willie stepped into the bank wearing his blue suit and his blue tie. There's one in that sentence. What is it, Ryan? Blue doesn't have an E, so you should cross off the blue and up above it, write it correctly. Good. All right, that's 2. What else do we got? What else is there? Then we have his hair was so slicked down that it looked like wet paint. Is there anything wrong in that one? Claire? That it looked good. His hair was so slicked down that it looked like wet paint.
But it should be like...
It should be cross that off and say looked good. All right, that's 3. All right. He asked to see Mr. Foster, the president of the bank. What's wrong with that one? Brooke?
He said asked. There's no ED.
It needs to say asked with an ED after it. Good, so cross that off and say asked. All right, that is 4. We're almost halfway. To see Mr. Foster, the president of the bank. Mr. Foster was a big man with a big cigar stuck right in the center of his big mouth. What's wrong with that one? Adam?
White is like white. R-I-G-H-T.
It should be the R-I-G-H-T, right in the center of his mouth. It sounds right, but it's not spelled right. In the center of his big mouth. All right. Any other ones in that sentence? Nope, none in that one. Good. When he talked, the cigar bobbled up and down, and little Willie wondered why the ash didn't fall off the end of it. What do you think, Micah? Oh, we got 1. All right, so we got down. Should be, how should we spell it? D-O-W-N. Good. All right, so that's 1. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Now, there is a few more in this sentence. What else is wrong? Lily? Yeah, instead of talk, it should say talked. When he talked. T-A-L-K-E-D. The cigar bobbled up and down, and little Willie wondered why the ash didn't fall off the end of it. What else, Maddie?
It says wonder. Let's just say wonder.
It should say wondered. Good. And little Willie wondered. You need to add ED. It's like our spelling words in here. Add an ED to a lot of them. All right. So let's see. That's 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that's 8. All right. 2 more to go. Little Willie showed Mr. Foster the papers from Grandfather's strongbox and told him everything Clifford Snyder, the taxman, had said. There's 2 more. Nathan? 1. It should be said is spelled wrong. Do you know how we should spell it, Nathan? S-A-I-D. Good. All right, then what's our last one? Have 1 more. Monica?
Showed.
Little Willie showed. Yeah, Little Willie didn't show. Little Willie show him? No. Little Willie showed. Add ED. All right, and that is all 10 up there. Then you had 2 sentences. Why did Grandfather become sick? Remember, we made really good inferences, but now we know for sure. Why is Grandfather sick? Lizzie?
Grandfather became sick because he didn't pay the taxes.
Oh, I love that 4th grade answer. Can I get a... Grandfather became sick because he did not pay his taxes. Fabulous. Lizzie reused part of the sentence in her part of the question in her answer.
He didn't have enough money to pay.
Ooh, we could add that too. Did not pay his taxes. We could add another because he did not have enough Money to pay. We could add that. Can I get a whoop whoop for Holly? Can I get a nice addition? Okay. All right, the last one. How did Little Willie plan to pay Mr. Snyder? Remember the chapter was called The Way. Zane, how is he going to figure this out? Yeah, Willie planned to get the money to pay Mr. He planned to get the money to pay Mr. Snyder by entering a race, right? That's what you said, Zane? By entering a race. If you want to say a sled dog race, is that the same thing as a race, pretty much?
Yes.
Close enough. Yep. If you have something with a race, sled dog is great. Entering just a race is good. Something along those lines. Questions on our homework? All right, then let's get our books, and we're going to read chapter 6, and then we'll do that main idea and details page, and then we'll read chapter 7 and do the inferences page. All right. So we last left, and Little Willie told Grandfather that he's going to enter, right? And Searchlight was barking, and Grandfather, remember, was crying, right? Because he was so sad. All right, chapter 6, Stone Fox. Remember, we'll fill that page out together, fourth grade friends, okay? Little Willie went to see Mayor Smiley at the City Hall building in town to sign up for the race. The mayor's office was large and smelled like hair tonic. The mayor sat in a bright red chair with his feet on his desk. There was nothing on the desk except for the mayor's feet. We have a race for you youngsters 1 hour before. Mayor Smiley mopped sweat from his neck with a silk handkerchief, although Little Willie thought it was quite cool in the room. I want to enter the real race, Mr. Mayor. You must be funny, boy, the mayor laughed. Twice he blotted his neck. Anyway, there's an entrance fee. How much? $50. Little Willie was stunned. That was a lot of money just to enter a race, but he was determined. He ran across the street to the bank. Don't be stupid, Mr. Foster told Little Willie. This is not a race for amateurs. Some of the best dog teams in the Northwest will be entering. I have Searchlight. We'll go as fast as lightning. Really, Mr. Foster, we do. Mr. Foster shook his head. You don't stand a chance of winning. Yes, we do. Willie, the money in your savings account is for your college education. You know I can't give it to you. You have to. I do. It's my money. Little Willie left the bank with a stack of $10 gold pieces, 5 of them to be exact. He walked into the mayor's office and plopped the coins down on the mayor's desk. Me and Searchlight are gonna win that $500, Mr. Mayor. You'll see. Everybody'll see. Mayor Smiley counted the money, wiped his neck, and entered Little Willie in the race. When Little Willie stepped out of the City Hall building, he felt 10 feet tall. He looked up and down at the snow-covered street. He was grinning from ear to ear. Searchlight walked over and stood in front of the sled, waiting to be hitched up. But Little Willie wasn't ready to go yet. He put his thumbs in his belt loops and let the sun warm his face. He felt great. In his pocket was a map Mayor Smiley had given him showing the 10 miles the race covered. Down Main Street, right on North Road, Little Willie could hardly hold back his excitement. 5 miles of the race he traveled every day and knew with his eyes closed. The last 5 miles were back into town along South Road, which was mostly straight and flat. It's speed that would count here, and with the lead he knew he could get in the first 5 miles. Little Willie was sure he could win. As Little Willie hitched Searchlight to the sled, something down at the end of the street, some moving objects caught his eye. They were difficult to see because they were all white. There were 5 of them, and they were beautiful. In fact, they were the most beautiful Samoyeds Little Willie had ever seen. The dogs held their heads up proudly and strutted in unison. They pulled a large but lightly constructed sled. They also pulled a large but by no means lightly constructed man. Way down at the end of the street, the man looked normal. But as the sled got closer, the man got bigger and bigger. The man was an Indian. dressed in furs and leather with moccasins that came all the way up to his knees. His skin was dark, his hair was dark, and he wore a dark-colored headband. His eyes sparkled in the sunlight, but the rest of his face was hard as stone. The sled came to a stop right next to Little Willie. The boy's mouth hung open as he tilted his head way back to look up at the man. Little Willie had never seen a giant before. Gosh, Little Willie gasped. The Indian looked at Little Willie. His face was solid granite, but his eyes were alive and cunning. Howdy, Little Willie blurted out, and he gave a nervous smile. But the Indian said nothing. His eyes shifted to Searchlight, who let out a soft moan but did not bark. The giant walked into the City Hall building. Fourth grade friends. One second, I need a second here. So to backtrack a little bit, sorry. Gosh, Little Willie gasped. The Indian looked at Little Willie. His face was solid granite, but his eyes were alive and cunning. Howdy, Little Willie blurted out, and he gave a nervous smile. But the Indian said nothing. His eyes shifted to Searchlight, who let out a soft moan but did not bark. The giant walked into the City Hall building. Word that Stone Fox had entered the race spread throughout the town of Jackson within the hour, and throughout the state of Wyoming within the day. Stories and legends about the awesome mountain man followed shortly. Little Willie heard many of them at Lester's General Store. Was this time in Denver he snapped a man's back with 2 fingers, said Dusty, the town drunk, but nobody really believed him. Little Willie learned that no white man had ever heard Stone Fox talk. Stone Fox refused to speak with the white man because of the treatment his people had received. His tribe, the Shoshone, who were peaceful seed gatherers, had been forced to leave Utah and settle on a reservation in Wyoming with another tribe called Arapaho. Stone Fox's dream for his people to return to their homeland. Stone Fox was using the money he won from racing to simply buy the land back. He had already purchased 4 farms and over 200 acres. That Stone Fox was smart, all right. In the next week, Little Willie and Searchlight went over the 10-mile track every day until they knew every inch of it by heart. Stone Fox hardly practiced at all. In fact, Little Willie only saw Stone Fox do the course once, and then he was sure he wasn't going very fast. The race was scheduled for Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. Only 9 sleds were entered. Mayor Smiley had hoped for more contestants, but after Stone Fox had entered, well, you couldn't blame people for wanting to save their money. It was true, Stone Fox had never lost a race, but Little Willie wasn't worried. He had made up his mind to win, and nothing was going to stop him, not even Stone Fox. Zach, you have a question.
Yeah. What is the
Town drunk means he is a person in town who drinks a lot.
So people know him by
People know him because he drinks a lot of alcoholic drinks, yeah. And usually people who are like that kind of get that reputation that they're not very trustworthy. That's why nobody trusts him, because they were like, maybe he's just making this up. Okay? All right, so let's look at our main idea and details page. All right, so down here on the bottom, we can fill the bottom part out. The title of our book is Stone Fox. And we did chapter 6. And the name is your name. All right. Now, what we want to do is think about this chapter. What's kind of our big idea? You have to give almost like a description to this chapter, a few sentences maybe. Think through, what was this chapter, only this chapter, about? What was the main idea of this chapter? Claire? Yeah, Little Willie enters the race or competition. I just think race is a little easier to spell. So Little Willie enters the race. That's what the big idea is. Does that help, Christian? Yeah. You can go a little more. All right, so we know Little Willie's entering the race. Then details are like the petals of a flower. They're things that make it up. It still has to do with Little Willie entering the race, but each one is a little more specific. Okay, it's kind of helping the flower be pretty, helping the story be more interesting. What is a detail that goes with Little Willie entering the race? What do you think, Ryan?
He's using up all his money in his bank account to enter this race.
Yeah, Little Willie took out his money. That is a detail. Little Willie took it out. You could even add more if you want. Little Willie took all of his money, right? It happens to be $50. How many of you would enter a race for $50?
I have 200.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Well, that's not that much in our days. I have 200.
But at $50 that you don't get back if you don't win. So if you don't win, you don't get anything. Right? All right, what's another detail in the story that talks about Little Willie entering the race? Do you have one, Camille? Oh, I did spell little one. Wrong. Thank you. Little. There we go. All right, another detail. Monica?
Kind of like just, it's also sort of about Stone Fox, like just kind of getting to know him.
So Stone Fox also enters, right? We're getting to know Stone Fox a little bit more. He enters the race. That is an important detail, something in this chapter. What else kind of explains Little Willie entering the race? What else did he do in this chapter that has to do with the race? Think about it. Amelia?
He sort of memorized the track out.
Little Willie memorized or practiced the track. Awesome. Yeah, he went through and practiced many times. How many times did Stone Fox practice? One. And was he really doing it like it was a race? He was just kind of going.
But if he's never lost, he has done it.
He's clearly done something. He's doing something right? He's never lost a race. So maybe he only needs to do it one time. We'll see. All right, we need 2 more details that talk about Little Willie entering the race. Let's go. Ryan, you got one? You seem hesitant.
Something that Stone Fox didn't talk to Little Willie because of his land got taken away.
That is a good detail of this chapter, but does that have to do with Little Willie entering the race? That's why I love that thinking, though. It's a good part of the chapter. What else goes with Little Willie entering the race? Think back to the beginning. Rosie?
This isn't from the beginning, but Little Willie knows.
Little Willie, that kind of goes with Amelia's one, right, too? Yes, we do know that he knows he can win. He's really confident. Lizzie?
He entered the race for the money so he could pay his taxes.
Is that part of this chapter? No, that's a good thinking, though. That does have to do with that main idea. Annika?
Nobody can do it. Mayor Smiley and Mr. Foster both said you're not.
Yeah, so we can say Mr. Smiley and, what was the banker's name? Mr. Foster, thank you. And Mr. Foster do not want him to enter, right? They both are like, you aren't gonna win. All right, and there's one more thing. What else do we know about Little Willie entering the race? Little Willie took out his money. Stone Fox is also in the race. Little Willie's practicing. Mr. Smiley and Mr. Foster don't want him to enter. Is there anything else you can think of? Brooke?
I can kind of think of how for the reason why Stone Fox was looking at Searchlight, it was kind of weird.
That's a good point to discuss, but does that have to do with the main idea?
No.
No. Alicia?
Is this more like a instance what I think is gonna happen? I feel like Stone Fox has met Searchlight before and scared her.
Ooh. Maybe because because Searchlight kind of moaned oh, scary. You forgot yours?
Yeah, I got one.
I think it's okay if we don't do this one because is this one kind of like 2? That was really 2 different parts, wasn't it? We had Mr. Smiley first, and then we had Mr. Foster. So it's okay to combine those because they have to do with the same idea. Hold on, Nathan? Maybe he cheats. I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's just kind of scribble this flower in like you're coloring the petal with your pencil. You can just color it in to make a flower. All right. Then we will do the inferences page next. So let's read chapter 7 and start thinking about making inferences like Alasia's already ready to go and doing. Maybe, Claire? Ooh, so because Stone Fox was going slow, so maybe he was looking for all of the shortcuts or something that he could do. Ooh, I like where you're thinking. All right, chapter 7, the meeting. Thank you for not working on your homework quite yet, 4th grade friends, to have a little patience for me, okay? Chapter 7, the meeting. It was Friday night, the night before the race, when it happened. Grandfather was out of medicine. Little Willie went to see Doc Smith. Here, Doc Smith handed Little Willie a piece of paper with some scribbling on it. Take this to Lester right away. But it's nighttime. The store's closed. Just knock on the back door. He'll hear you. But are you sure it's all right? Yes. Lester knows I may have to call on him anytime, day or night. People don't always get sick just during work hours now, do they? No, I guess they don't. Little Willie headed for the door. He sure wished he could stay and have some of that cinnamon cake Doc Smith was baking in the oven. It smelled mighty good. But Grandfather needed his medicine. And anyway, he wouldn't think of staying without being asked. One other thing, Willie, Doc Smith said. Yes, ma'am? I might as well say this now as later. It's about the race tomorrow. Yes, ma'am? First, I want you to know that I think you're a darn fool for using your college money to enter that race. Little Willie's eyes looked to the floor. Yes, ma'am. But since it's already been done, I also want you to know that I'll be rooting for you. Little Willie looked up. You will? Win, Willie. Win that race tomorrow. Little Willie beamed. He tried to speak, but couldn't find the words. Embarrassed, he backed over to the door, gave a little wave, then turned quickly to leave. And Willie? Yes, ma'am? If you stay a minute, you can have some of that cinnamon cake I got in the oven. Yes, ma'am. Later, on his way to town, Little Willie sang at the top of his lungs. The sled's runners cut through the snow with a swish. This was a treacherous road at night, but the moon was out and Searchlight could see well. And anyway, they knew this road by heart. Nothing was going to happen. Lester gave Little Willie a big bottle of what looked like dirty milk. How's your grandfather doing? Lester asked. Not so good, but after I win the race tomorrow, he'll be better. He'll get better. Doc Smith thinks so, too. Lester smiled. I admire you, Willie. You got a heap of courage going up against the likes of Stone Fox. You know he's never lost, don't you? Yes, I know. Thank you for the medicine. Little Willie waved goodbye as Searchlight started down Main Street. Lester watched the departing sled for a long time before he yelled, Good luck, son! On his way out of town, along North Road, Little Willie heard dogs barking. The sounds came from the old deserted barn near the schoolhouse. Little Willie decided to investigate. He squeaked open the barn door and peeked in. It was dark inside, and he couldn't see anything. He couldn't hear anything either. The dogs had stopped barking. He went inside the barn. Little Willie's eyes took a while to get used to the dark, and then he saw them. The 5 Samoyeds. They were in the corner of the barn, but on a bed of straw. They were looking at him. They were so beautiful that Little Willie couldn't keep from smiling. Little Willie loved dogs. He had to see the Samoyeds up close. They showed no alarm as he approached, or as he held out his hand to pet them. And then it happened. There was a movement through the darkness to Little Willie's right. A sweeping motion, fast at first, and then it appeared to slow down. But it didn't stop. A hand hit Little Willie right in the face, sending him over backwards. I didn't mean any harm, Mr. Stone Fox, Little Willie said as he picked himself up off the ground, holding a hand over his eye. Stone Fox stood tall in the darkness and said nothing. Searchlight barked outside. The Samoyeds barked in return. Little Willie continued, I'm going to race against you tomorrow. I know how you want to win, but I want to win too. I gotta win. If I don't, they're going to take away our farm. They have the right to. Grandfather says that those that want to bad enough will. So I will. I'll win. I'm going to beat you. Stone Fox remained motionless and silent. Little Willie backed over to the barn door, still holding his eye. I'm sorry, we both can't win, he said. And then he pushed open the barn door and left, closing the door behind him. In the barn, Stone Fox stood unmoving for another moment. Then he reached out with one massive hand and gently petted one of the Samoyeds. That night, Little Willie couldn't sleep. His eye was killing him. And when Little Willie couldn't sleep, Searchlight couldn't sleep. Both tossed and turned for hours, and whenever Little Willie looked over to see if Searchlight was asleep, she'd just be lying there with her eyes wide open, staring back at him. Little Willie needed his rest. So did Searchlight. Tomorrow was going to be a big day, the biggest day of their lives. We'll read chapter 8 the day tomorrow. All right. What do you think about the chapter so far? What was interesting? Stone Fox hit Little Willie. Why did he hit Little Willie? Lily?
I think that Stone Fox was trying to hurt the dog so he could win. So he's like, hey, stop that.
Right. Are people usually really protective of their animals?
Yeah.
And if somebody comes in the middle of the night to the barn where your dogs are and you have a race tomorrow, would you be a little defensive?
Yes.
Right? So I agree with you, Lily. I think he was thinking maybe this person's going to hurt my dog, so to kind of sabotage me. Monica?
I kind of think that Stone Fox actually sort of sabotaged Willie. So I feel like since his eye was bugging him or whatever, I feel like he had something on his hand. But he's still gonna win because Searchlight knows the path super well.
Ooh.
I feel like he can't see.
So maybe Stone Fox was trying to sabotage Little Willie by hitting him in the eye. At least, why? So maybe he had something on his hands. Why else might your eye hurt? Think about that part in the book when Stone Fox did strike out and hit him. What happened? What was an effect of him hitting him right after it? Ryan?
Oh, maybe because the guy is massive and his hand hit him straight in the eye. So it's
It hit him straight in the eye and it knocked Little Willie over, didn't it? So maybe just the force of it would be enough to hurt. How many of you have ever gotten hit in the face with something like a baseball or even a brother or sister on accident or on purpose? Does it hurt?
yeah.
It does. Now imagine this big grown man hit you in the eye. Would that hurt?
Yeah.
Yeah. But why else might that kind of sabotage Little Willie? Think through what happened because his eye got hit in the night. What happened? Claire? He couldn't sleep. How many of you ever get a little nervous before a big event and can't sleep? Does it affect how you do the event?
Yeah.
So if Little Willie can't get sleep, Searchlight also can't get sleep. Is that looking good for our race? Ooh, you want to be well rested before your big races like that. Rosie?
How Stone Fox sabotaged Willie a little bit, it might sabotage him too because his hand could hurt.
His hand could hurt, so maybe he can't hold the reins on his sled too, maybe. Well, might have been a little back kick getting himself too. Claire?
Maybe the dogs are kind of mad
They were barking, yeah. So maybe the dogs are a little upset with the Stone Fox too. We'll have to see tomorrow. Miss Mandy?
When Little Willie was talking about how long he went to the farm,
Uh-huh.
Stone Fox was kind of silent. So maybe he was a little mad.
Maybe Stone Fox is taking it in, because he also stood there for a moment after, right? Even when he was gone. So maybe he is really reflecting on it and does feel bad. All right, let's find our inference page if you don't have it in already. Do you know what a schema is?
Nope.
No.
Schema is a really fun word for your knowledge, what you already know. Can you say that word with me? Schema. your schema. So we're thinking through, what do we already know about this kind of situation? And then that'll help us make an inference. So for example, Doc Smith tells Little Willie she wants him to win. Well, we already know Doc Smith cares for Little Willie, right? Would you agree? We already know that she cares for Little Willie. So Doc Smith then tells Little Willie she wants him to win. What can we infer based off of that part of the story when Doc Smith tells Little Willie that she wants him to win? What do you think, Zach?
That she probably, you already know this, but she probably, that she's probably gonna root for him, because if she wants him to win, he needs to show up and cheer.
So I infer that Doc Smith will show up and cheer for Willie. Good, yeah, because she says you want him to win, and usually if you want someone to win, you go and support them. Awesome, good inference. All right, I'll leave that one like that. Now, while you're finishing that up, start thinking too. What do you know about Stone Fox hitting Little Willie in the face? What's your schema about Stone Fox? What do we know about Stone Fox that can help us make an inference? What do we know about him? Kateri?
Maybe he's like really mean and he doesn't like, and he wins little.
You're really close. You're really close. Think, what do we know about Stone Fox? Isaac? So is he a little what? A little mad, right? And he's a little kind of mean because he was treated wrong, right? He wasn't treated right. So my schema, we know Stone Fox was treated wrong, and I'm gonna do this one. And does not like, what does he not like? White people, yeah. Rightfully so, though, right? They took all of his land. Remember we talked about in social studies? Imagine being like, nope, you gotta move. Nope, you gotta move again. Nope, you gotta keep going. And he's trying to get that land back because he kind of doesn't like them and doesn't trust white people. So we know that Stone Fox hit Little Willie in the face. What can we infer from that action, from Stone Fox? We kind of discussed this a little bit already. What are you thinking, Maddie? No? Lizzie? You're just stretching? Claire? It will affect the race because Willie and Searchlight cannot sleep. I can't move it over there. I don't know. If I go like that, can you read that all? I can either make it smaller, but then it's harder to see. Yeah. So we know that Stone Fox hit him in the face. It's probably going to have an effect on the race because they're not sleeping. Thomas? Ooh, so Thomas's one he might say is, I infer that Stone Fox feels sorry or bad for Little Willie and might let him win then. Ooh, that's a good inference too. All right. He does have 2 acres, but is that as much as he lost? He lost a lot. They lost, think about Native Americans. They used to have the whole continent, or whole country, and now they're down to this little reservation, like a little town almost. So 20 acres, not as much as the whole country. 200, but is that still the whole country? No, most cities are, well, let's see. Let's do this. How many acres is let's do that. Is a football field to kind of get us a good idea. A football field is 1.3. So he has about 20 football fields. He only has enough for 20 football fields. That is, but think back to our whole country. Is our whole country bigger than 20 football fields?
Oh, yes, probably like
So not the actual stadium, just the field. Just the grass part, keep in mind.
probably way over.
Yeah. All right, and then we can just scribble out the last one. Let's talk about it, though, okay? Little Willie tells Stone Fox that he's going to win the race. What can we infer will happen because of that? Why don't you try and talk to your partner while you do that? All right, what did you think? We've got time to share a few inferences. What do you infer from Little Willie telling Stone Fox he's going to win? Adam?
That if Stone Fox might try a little harder because, like, little, because you kind of want to make Little stand in his place, like, you're down here, I'm up here.
Ooh, to maybe kind of, so Stone Fox might work a little harder because maybe Little Willie kind of upset him, right? Being like, no, you're a kid. I'm an adult. I'm going to win. So maybe Stone Fox will work a little harder. Last one. Kateri, what was your inference?
I disagree because I think that Stone Fox would be like, well, I hit him. He'll probably hurt you, so I don't really have to try as much.
So maybe,
I think Little Willie's gonna win.
so maybe Stone Fox will let down his guard because he knows he hurt Little Willie, and he's thinking, I got this in the bag. Maybe he won't even show up now, right? Because he got hurt. Awesome job, fourth grade friends. All right. On the back page, you have chapter 6 questions for homework. Let's take a look through that. A full sentence, fourth grade answer, using part of it, not just telling me your answer. I want to see it written down when I come around tomorrow. How did Willie get the money to enter the race? Okay. And then circle your answer for number 2. Samoids, we know what samoids are. Describe Stone Fox. Think through, what words does the author use? How many sleds are in the race?
Well, it doesn't.
It gave you some details about Stone Fox's appearance.
Not that. The race just.
How many sleds are entered? That tells you at the end of the chapter. Look back. Can't tell you. What was Stone Fox going to do with the money if he wins? And then chapter 7's question. Why did Little Willie go to town? Circle your answer. Number 2, would you have gone into that barn? Your own kind of opinion one. Why or why not? 3, what did Stone Fox do? 4, why do you think Stone Fox did that? And 5, what do you think is going to happen in the race? Kind of your inference part comes in there again. Do you have any questions on your homework for me? All right, then we will have some homework work time. See you soon.